dobre. Završajem na teoretičnu praktiku. All right, ladies and gentlemen, well, pardon my Belarusian, or at least my horrible attempt at it. But this is my we'll call it a 1984, it's somewhere in that range. 1984 Belarus 250AS. This is a beauty, an absolute brute of the USSR engineering. So it's a very basic little tractor. It does have a US made front end loader on it, which is, probably wouldn't have bought it if it didn't have that. That's just kind of a nice feature to have. Onto the hood, you got your two-cylinder 33-ish horsepower engine. It's air cooled, so you can see right there and there. There may be some shots of this full of mouse because there was a lot of mouse nest in this engine when I picked it up. In fact, there's still a little bit left. So what we're going to be doing today is just fixing the problem where currently it's stuck in low first gear and it cannot come out of gear. We're going to fix that transmission problem. Hopefully it's something cheap and easy. And then we're going to basically just do a full tune-up on the machine. So we're going to do oil. We're going to do the oil. There's actually an oil inside of the injector pump, which I haven't heard about that before, but apparently it's a thing. So we're going to change the oil in the air filter. And we're also going to clean the centrifugal oil filter, which does not have a replaceable filter in it. And oh, hot damn. I was wondering where the temperature pickup for this was, but I can see that it's probably that little guy right there, because it's an air-cooled engine, so it's got to pick up the temperature from the oil. The bad news is the tachometer is done. The other gauges seem to work except for the temperature gauge, but that may be something simple. This is another lovely little device here. This is a negative disconnect. So battery's disconnected, battery's connected. So if you see that the light is still on over there, no, you can't really tell, but yeah, there you go. That's what it does. It's just to give you a battery disconnect. When you walk away, you disconnect the negative. Problem with this is a 50 amp disconnect, and yeah, without the compression relief, this thing would not start with that sort of a disconnect. So this is the compression relief right here. It makes starting a lot easier. You've got a manual plunger type primer there. You have, and over here, to make it easier to start, if it's really cold out, you can lift this little lever up and bring it towards you, and that disconnects the hydraulic pump and that reconnects it. So it's just little things because this thing was made to run in Siberia. So yeah, that's about the basics of it. We'll get torn into it. We'll go over it in more detail in the next video of like what it does and doesn't do. I'd say the pluses on this are that it was real cheap and it runs. Ran when I got it, drove it out of the field after 2 years sitting there, no fuss, no muss. That's why you won't see much of it, because it wasn't anything to see. You bled it, started it, and drove it away. It does have a neat feature in the back here, though. This hydraulic ram does the 3-point hitch, and it is power up and power down. So that's cool if you're doing stuff like tillering a garden or whatever. You can force that tiller down into the ground. It does not have a live PTO. If we're fixing the transmission, it does not have a hydrostatic transmission, so it is a clutch job, but it's not that hard to drive. If you'll see me screw up driving it later on, and the basic problem is that I thought, oh, it's a clutch, it's a transmission, it's just like a car. I've never driven a tractor before because I never had a tractor to drive before, and it's just enough like driving a car to completely screw you up. You don't really use the throttle while you're using the clutch. You don't use the gear shifter while you're moving. You know, all these other things. So, yeah. But that's the walk around. She's in shape, certainly. That's a little... Yeah, we're going to ignore that. Yeah. All right, we're going to do a little... driver's eye view here of starting it up if I can find a good spot. So in this case, clutch down, brake lever up, even though it only does one brake because they're not bound together yet. And actually that sees to screw it up. I have the rear tires off the ground now with the jack. You do have to give this quite a bit of throttle. That's the floor throttle there. That's your hand throttle there. This kind of needs to be adjusted a little tighter. It's kind of loosey-goosey. That's okay. And most importantly, the decompression lever. So you pull that out. Key turns one position, which I didn't actually connect the positive side of the battery again because I'm not a bright man. All right, this is round 2 because now the battery's connected. You also, so this is the negative terminal disconnect. So the negative terminal battery connects to this and actually grounds through there, which is a terrible idea. So you push it down. So if it had better connection, I think it'd be good. So you do that. Push the clutch, you pull this lever, put some brakes on. There's a double spring switch. The first spring is the glow plug, which the light used to work, I'm told, but no longer works. That light is just the lights on or off switch. I don't know. So, and then you turn it fast the first position to second position, and once it's spinning pretty good, and that's it. I just want to run it for a minute to get it warmed up enough to not burn off the water and whatnot. She's a fresh 78-hour machine. Perfect. I'm sure that's accurate. You can't even probably see me right now. I'll probably say this about 30 times, but this thing is the most awkward height of a piece of equipment I've ever worked on. Oh. What the? You guys got to see this. So this bad boy right here is the throttle linkage. It's absolutely mounted to the floor plate. Nice. Well, that'll be good. That'll be good. That's why I felt spring loaded, but that's just the silliest thing I've ever seen, so. All right, so let us see. Oh wow, that came off easy. And there it is. So the bottom of it is just a thing forward and back, and then this bad boy. So, and I can totally see what happened. Yep. All right. So, if you look down in here, you can see that this is sort of a nice pocket for that. This is a nice pocket. And this is not where it should be. This should be in the middle. I wonder if it slipped. But yeah, there's a slot that should be in the middle here, and then that's fine where that is. So that would be the high and the low, which pushes back and forth. But all these should be lined up. It's also filthy in there, so that's definitely getting an oil change. But let me see if I got a screwdriver, and if I pop it into neutral, then, well, then we're done. No, we're not done, but so let's see if or it's stuck. Oh, it's not completely stuck. I just need a better pry bar. I will be right back. Okay, so all you really gotta do is take a pry bar and well, that's not ideal, is it? Wonder if I rock it a little. I'm gonna jack up the rear end so I can rock the axle a little bit. All right. What's that? Uh-oh. There's like a piece of wire in there. That's not a good sign. I'm gonna pull it out, but I actually forgot. I didn't push down the clutch, so I think that might be why I couldn't shift it back into neutral. But let me get that piece out of there, because that's not good. All right, well, the floor is out, which is not as straightforward as it should be, especially considering you basically have to take the floor out to put hydraulic fluid in it, which is actually just motor oil. So I don't know. I think if I take off the differential lock, that's about it. And all the other flat surface stuff on here, I think I can take all the bolts out of this, possibly, and just slide that plate on out of there. Possibly. Probably? Maybe. It's a definite maybe, that's for sure. Hopefully whatever part is broken in here. This is such a bad spot to be. All right. Good. I'll just pick that up off the ground later, because I don't have much of a choice. Alright guys, well, I got all the bolts out. I got the diff lock out. You kind of have to push the diff lock down. Uh-oh. Now it doesn't want to go down. Make sure I can actually push that down. Oh, it doesn't go down, it only goes up. Well, there you go. This little guy right here, it pulls up for the diff lock, which I can't do even remotely with my bare hands, and it will not go down into the hole any further though. I'm gonna tap it because that sounds like a good idea. No, it does not go down in the hole. Okay, well, all right, well, I don't have a manual. I have no idea what I'm doing, and there's no videos on this on YouTube for me to, I guess, steal content from? I don't know. I guess the brakes have to come off, all the hydraulic lines have to come off. Oh, that one's not too bad. Yeah, I guess that's what it is. I'm gonna pause this and get my camera and take a whole bunch of pictures so that I can know where the hoses go. I know I've got footage, but it's not quite the same. All right, so all the hydraulic lines are out, which is what you're gonna need to do. But I was trying to get the shift rod out, and I was fighting it and fighting it and fighting it. I looked at the diagram in the manual, which we'll show right about now, and there looks like there's a little slot on the edge of this shaft. And I thought it was a step down. I thought somehow it had to come out through there. And then I peel up the gasket, and I see these two little pins. That one's for this one, and this one's for this one. So you gotta pull this pin out to get this shift linkage out, and they hit it under a freaking gasket. So that's what I was fighting with for a long time last night, and I didn't film it because I was so angry. Once that's out, the top of this should come off. I actually think that this cover and the side cover are where we're going to really find the problem. But underneath here, all the bolts on this are safety wired, and that was what was popping up. So when the shift rod got behind where it should get, it ripped the safety wire off of that bolt right there. So that's what was hanging out. So it's not like some random spring that I'll never be able to get another one. Just a safety wire. I'm going to take this apart so I can re-safety wire it. There's also some loose components in there that I noticed when I sort of pried it to the side. But first I'm going to get this rod out. So we'll be back, and then we'll pop this cover off, and you'll get to see the inside of a Russian tractor transmission, if that's your thing. And if it's not, what are you even doing watching me, right? Like, come on. I wasn't going to show this part of it, and I might not if this doesn't work, but I got this tool that I made a while back, and by tool I mean I just welded some shit together. This is just a vice grip, but I have this nut welded on it, almost in line with the jaw, and that nut is for this slide hammer. Now, it's definitely way too big for this job, but it should, you know, be good enough. It's got me out of a lot of pinches, being able to vice grip on something well and just tap it backwards. So, I don't know. I haven't really seen anybody else try this, but it's just something I did out of pure frustration one day. So we shall see. Well, first we'll see if this will close enough. Yeah, I think this will. If this is the right tool for the job. Oh. Oh, that's gonna make the cut. I assume this would be stuck. But there it is. Slid out like a charm. Maybe these Ruskies know how to leave enough clearance. Oh well, I'm gonna get that apart and then we'll come back to the transmission. Alrighty, well I finally got that shaft out of there. You definitely have to take the 4 lower bolts off this, off. I don't know if the service manual tells you a different, better way to do this. It probably does, but I don't have it. So the 4 lower bolts, it gives us a little bit of wiggle room, and you can just kind of lift it up. You don't have to take the cover off of the other side or touch that pedal at all. So now that I can, let's see what's under door number 1. Let me make sure I drop as much garbage into the transmission as possible. That's absolutely key. Okay. All right. So, if you look right here, there's a safety wire here, there's a safety wire here. When this shifter, these should all be in line. That one I think I moved. This one is this, and this should all be lined up. This is high and low gear. This is the granny gear, first gear. It's backwards of the way the shifter is. So forward is high, low, and that brings the bar back into here. Nothing appears to be broken. But given that this one is stuck, and I can see, I don't see anything that's holding it back, it's just a spline shaft, I think the problem is under here, but I would have still had to get in there. I'm gonna tell myself I needed to get in here no matter what at this point, but just give it a little pry and see if it even wiggles there. So that seems free enough. Yeah, so that wiggles back and forth, but the rod does not. So the problem is in underneath this little linkage here, goes to this side cover here. So we're gonna take that all off and see if we see anything that's better to see. Alrighty, well I can at least kind of show you what's going on. There were some springs to hold some ball bearings and some detents on those. And I took them out. So now you can see that this shift shaft, this is the forward reverse, just slips back and forth, but these don't. So there's a little, yeah, you can see where I'm pointing. There's a little shaft here that I'm trying to take apart, and I took off one. It just doesn't want to come apart, just like everything else on this. It's just a fight I intend to win, but it's possible that I just need to adjust the linkage, which would be, well, it would kill me. It would kill me dead to know that. But I'm gonna try it anyways. So these are the end of the shafts right here. Again, just not any of these 3 move. This one goes back and forth easily. There's spring-loaded balls there. These are the detents to grab them. And then there's a rod that moves in and out based off of this to lock them in place or not. So I'm wondering if something's damaged that, and I bet it comes out here, but I bet there's no way in hell that it'll actually fit out there. Because to hell with anybody that wants to work on their machine, right? All right, okay. You know what? Regroup. Gonna get it. Gonna get it, gonna get it, gonna get it. All right. There we go. Hot damn. All right. Well, that is full of crap. I think it was rotated 90 degrees. I think it's supposed to be this way, and I think that was the problem. So you got the 3 shafts I think it was like this and not like this. Let's see if all the shafts move now. If they do, oh, there we go. So somebody, let's see if I can wipe it off a little better. There's a big old divot in this. So yeah, this is gonna take some cleaning up. I think if this gets cleaned up, and I'll make sure it's straight too, it might even be bent. That may be our problem all the way around. So, shaft 1 moves easy. Shaft 2 moves easy. Shaft 3 moves easy. Shaft 4 now moves easy. It's just not quite engaging because the gears aren't turning, but yeah, there we go. It's a little stiff, that one, but again, it hasn't been moved in a bunch of years. That was it. Beautiful. All right, well, that is the problem. Somehow, that shaft got rotated 90 degrees. I wonder if there's supposed to be a little spacer behind this, or if it was put on backwards, maybe? There is a hole in it and it's off center, so you could kind of put it on either way, but right about there. So yeah, I think that's all that happened, is that the shift interlock rotated 90 degrees, which kind of makes sense because the guy said, well, it did it once before, but it popped out of it. So I wonder if, you know, something just yanked on that just right. So I think what it was is that it would go forward and block out the forward reverse gear, but then it would be like this instead of being like this, where it could block out the high and reverse gear. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks. That's why there's only 3 slots, and you can see the wear on them. So if they went sideways like this, though, there's only 1 block that's coming in and out. So that's what happened. This could have been an easy-ish fix. Well, I still wanted to redo the things, and I had to get that. All right, it is what it is. But I'm definitely going to make sure to put spacers in to keep that little, there's a little round shifting fork that goes in here. This is definitely going to be a $0 fix. You'd think they would just make it so that it can't do that, but oh well. Alright guys, I'm going to make one last effort to film and show what the problem with this transmission is. If you see, when I move this little lever back and forth, there's a rod that moves there. Now, on the other side of that, right here, is a gap on that shaft. If you can see it, I'll even push it in and out. It doesn't matter right now. So there's that gap. If this is there, pushed in, or you hyperextend the shaft one way or the other by over-rotating, that little shaft I show you guys will turn 90 degrees. And when it turns 90 degrees, it'll still move back and forth, and it'll still lock and unlock your forward and reverse lever, but the other 3 levers will never unlock because that shaft has a side, I showed to you earlier, like this, with 3 grooves in it. And the grooves, when they are aligned with the shafts, allow them to shift in and out. So that's what happened. As far as, and what basically, how did that last so long and then happen randomly, right? That doesn't make sense. Well, in that gap right there that goes in and out, there was an O-ring to kind of act like a little bit of a spring and a spacer. And I know that because it was still there when I took it apart a little bit ago. But it was just completely perished, completely cracked, and just fell apart. So I think that just had just enough wiggle and maybe that was just a little bit misadjusted, or somebody just slapped the clutch a little bit hard and it just rotated just boop. You know, it doesn't even have to be the full 90 degrees. Like, you know, 30 degrees of rotation will lock out that shaft completely. And it'll still move back and forth. And it'll, over time, probably actually have a tendency to rotate all the way the wrong way. So, that's what happened. I'm gonna go get a bronze bushing from the hardware store, cut it down to be a very snug fit, and maybe even consider using a lock washer, kind of like a spring, because I think that's a good idea too. We'll see. I'll be back in a bit. All right, guys. Looking down from the top, you can see right now there's a little brass band right in there, and that's like a I think they're called a flange bearing. I always call them a top hat bearing because I like to. It wasn't that long originally, or that diameter. This shaft was nearly 5/8, so I just opened that up a little bit, cut it to length. It's an oil light bushing, and now you've got this nice little thing that moves back and forth, but it can't move in and out at all. Now, one thing to be clear about is you need it to move smoothly, but you don't really want a lot of play. And there's a dog point, or a pointed, this is a pointed screw. It looks like this. It has a corresponding divot in the shaft, so you can't change the position of that lever. So it's not like, you know, if it was like a pinch sort of a thing, you could move it around or whatever. But this is, or splined or anything else. This is a real simple way to do it, but you can't move the lever. So you gotta make your spacer for it. So I take that in and out a half dozen times, just kept moving around until I got so that it moved, you know, with a little bit of tightness almost. There's really no clearance. It might even be a little bit of interference, but this has enough leverage that it'll move it back and forth. And that's a oil-light bronze, so that'll wear in pretty quickly. That's it. The transmission's fixed for probably the next 20 years or whatever. Then someone will come apart and be like, what the hell is this thing in here? It's not in any of the parts that, well, no. In 20 years, someone will just, I don't know, scrap it probably, which is a shame. Maybe not. Who knows? I don't know. I like old crap and I like keeping it around. So anyways, the next step is going to be, I'm going to clean up the top of that whole top area, so that I can prep putting it back on. I'm not going to use a gasket. I'm just going to use RTV Ultra Black, and I'll just scrape that down with a razor blade, you know, just generally get it clean enough. And the other side, I'll actually wire wheel it to be really nice and clean. And then, yeah, then it's just a matter of putting it back together again. So it's evening now. So tomorrow, not that my days or nights matter to you one bit at all. And then hopefully tomorrow afternoon we'll be driving this around. We'll get it warmed up, we'll get it ready to run, and then we'll service it. And depending on how sassy I'm feeling, I'll either order parts to make it 100% or decide it's good enough, because it is good enough. I don't know. Part of me is like, oh, you know, for 300 bucks more you can make it perfect. The other part of me is like, yeah, but you gotta wait for 3 weeks. And well, I got my eye on this other project near me. It's not a tractor. It's a little cooler, a little less horsepower than this, still a diesel. Not that that's necessary, but it helps. And I hope nobody else snatches it up before me. So I kind of want to get this buttoned up, because I think this will move really quickly and move on to the next project. Eventually I'll keep something, but probably not for a while. And also because, you know, I don't know, it's fun. I enjoy the work, you know. I don't like running machines that much, to be fair. It gets old quick to me, but repairing them for some reason doesn't. I don't know. All right, so we're about ready to put the hydraulics back together again, except that they use these copper gaskets. We'll call them gaskets, that's what they're being used for. So one's on the top side of the bolt, one's on the bottom side. Now, these are typically one-time use, but since I know that I won't be able to find more of these, I'm going to make them two-time use. And you might be able to get away with a third time, but after that, these things, you'll see, they'll be ruined. So all you got to do is take them, put them on a little rod like that, and take your torch, and just heat them up. So starting to get some color to them. I just want them to get a little bit red. And then once you got some heat to them, so you can see that one's glowing a little bit, that's exactly what you're looking for. Want them all that hot, pretty uniformly. That's pretty good. And then you want to drop them in water. And that anneals them. So basically, once you use them once, you harden them up. This will soften them again so that they're reusable-ish. Again, not necessarily the best thing to do, but better than the alternative. Now you got these nice new reusable gaskets. That's it. I'm going to put the rest of the hydraulics together. I'm not going to show it, but this is an important touch. If you can't find them, grind them. There we go. Well, this was more or less what I was trying to do. I was trying to build up an edge here and give myself a pit to dump my leaves in, and also flip over some of the leaves, because man, they're pretty close to good dirt now. This is just where I dump my leaves. And with the little trailer I use, if I've got a little, you cannot see the lay of the land, but if you got a little step up here, it makes a big difference. So yeah, this little guy is pretty fun. I don't know, it's been, now that I've gotten used to the shifting, which is, again, not like a car, but it seems good, it seems strong. If you heard it idling down every time I got off, I think it's the foot pedal assembly is kind of wobbly, and I think it's wobbling enough that it's just affecting the throttle linkage. So anyways, that's gonna wrap it for episode 1 of the Belarus 250AS. The next episode is gonna be a full service, and then I'm gonna probably bring it to a buddy's house. He needs some help cutting down and dragging out some trees, and if this thing's gonna be good for one thing, it's dragging out trees, because man, it would just sit there and just churn those rear tires as long as you wanted it to. So I tried to show it earlier, but it was very loud. Yeah, I got a problem with this one valve, and I put a new O-ring in it, which seemed to be the only seal, but it's well, liquid comes out. Some may say it squirts out. Some may make the obvious joke, but not this guy. So we're gonna try to fix that too, maybe. It's not the end of the world for a tractor like this. So have a great week. Like, comment, subscribe. No one's watching at this point anyways, so you know, whatever.